Today's science lesson is Chapter 1, Section 5 on Tools, Measurement, and Safety. We have 4 objectives today. You should be able to describe 3 kinds of tools, explain the importance of the International System of Units, describe how to measure length, area, mass, volume, and temperature, and identify lab safety symbols and demonstrate safe practices during lab investigations. All right, so tools for science. We have tools for seeing, measuring, analyzing. Some tools for seeing in science would be a microscope, where you can magnify what you're looking at. For measuring, stopwatches, meter sticks, balances, thermometers, spring scales, and graduated cylinders, those funny skinny looking tubes that you see scientists with. And for analyzing, calculators, computers, and your brain with a pencil and paper, the old-fashioned way. So here are some that we just talked about, but you can see actual images. Ignore what it says EN19. You will have this page to complete, but it looks a little different. It's on a different page in your EN. So here we have the graduated cylinder. This measures volume. Here we have the thermometer. You know that it measures temperature. A stopwatch, it's cut off. It measures time, of course. A meter stick, length. A balance, used to measure mass. And a spring scale is used to measure force. The International System of Units actually started out in the late 1700s by the French Academy of Sciences. It's abbreviated down to just SI, and it's used by almost all countries in the world, with the exception of the United States. Well, we use it, but we also use customary measurement as well, like feet and inches and miles. So, the SI, the International System of Units, they are all based on the number 10. And this makes being able to convert those units from one to another very, very easy, because all you're doing is moving a decimal point back and forward. So you can see some common SI units. Here we have, everything's based on the meter here. So kilometers, decimeters, centimeters, millimeters, so on and so forth. So your meter is your base, and then you're simply either multiplying or dividing by 10. So you're either just moving the decimal to the right or to the left, depending on what you're needing to change. Volume. Anytime you write volume in math, you put this little 3 to the side of it. And that represents cubed. So every time you find volume, you're going to have 3 numbers that you're multiplying together, and that's why it's cubed. So you would have a cubic centimeter or cubic meter or so on and so forth. Some other measurements of volume would be the liter, like you go to the store and you buy a 2-liter drink. And then you have milliliter, which is really, really tiny. But again, you can see you're just moving decimal points. To measure mass, we use the unit of gram in the SI units. And you also, that goes into milligrams and kilograms and centigrams. I mean, it just keeps going like all of these up here do. But they're just showing you the short version here. And then for temperature, we normally use Fahrenheit, but in science, you use either Celsius, so degrees Celsius, or Kelvin. And you don't use degrees when you're dealing with Kelvin. So if you're like really, really into science, you will grow up one day and you will use Kelvin to measure temperature. Not degrees Celsius or degrees Fahrenheit. Kelvin. So that's a little different. All right, so we just talked about this. And length in the SI unit of measure we use a meter. That's our base. And I said when you're finding volume, you have 3 numbers. That's how you get the little cubed. If you're finding area, and that's wrong, that should be area equals length times width. That's wrong. So area equals length times width. So you have 2 numbers that you're multiplying together. So instead of that little 3 being after your unit of measure, it would be a little 2, representing 2 numbers, and that is squared. So a 3 is cubed for volume, and a 2 is squared for area. And then mass, you're measuring the amount of matter. So matter, mass. Matter, mass. Mass matters. Volume, we just talked about that with the 3 numbers, so you cube it. Temperature, it's the measure of how hot or cold something is. We're going to get even deeper into temperature this year. And then density is the ratio of the mass of a substance to the volume of the substance. And you would use this formula to find density. So the mass divided by the volume. Now obviously we're not going to be in a lab this year because we're virtual. Excuse me. But when you get in a lab setting, you need to know some safety rules. So number 1, listen to your teacher. Follow those instructions. Your teacher's giving you those instructions to keep you safe. You should read the lab procedures carefully and do each step by step by step. Don't put step 3 before step 1. And pay special attention to any safety information that's either posted or that your teacher gives you. So here you can see some safety symbols that you might see in a lab setting. Some of them are obvious. Eye protection. You want to protect your eyes in the lab. You want to protect your clothes, so you would wear a heavy-duty apron if you're dealing with chemicals especially. Be careful. You don't want to lose a finger. Heat safety. You don't want to blow anything up. Electric safety. Electricity is dangerous, so be very, very careful with that. Sharp objects. That's explanatory. Chemical safety. If you mix 2 of the wrong chemicals together, you can either cause an explosion or you can cause a deadly mixture of fumes, and I mean deadly when I say that, depending on what it is, that could either knock you out, or if you stay long enough breathing those fumes, it could kill you, it could suffocate you, because it would deprive the air of the oxygen that you need to survive. Animal safety and plant safety. So if you have live animals or you're dealing with live plants, so some live animals can hurt you. You need to handle them carefully. And some live plants can leave you feeling pretty bad as well, like poison ivy, for example. So here are just some lab safety symbols if you're ever in that situation. Okay, this concludes our lesson today. And it also concludes our study of Chapter 1.